Bitcoin price volatility is way down over the last few months, which historically signals a huge move either up or down is imminent. The question is, which way is it going? Today, we dive into the chances of Bitcoin being part of a US strategic stockpile and or the newly announced sovereign wealth fund in 2025. But what happens if neither of these happen? Does Bitcoin still have significant upside potential without nation-state adoption? What is the bullish case for Bitcoin this cycle without a strategic Bitcoin reserve? Bitcoin has been pretty boring the last few weeks as the price volatility has almost completely disappeared after the swift sell-off following the announcement by Trump's crypto czar David Sachs about looking into the feasibility of a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Even though for all intents and purposes, it was a very bullish announcement. It seems that traders have placed their bets on where they think the price is going in the short term, and now we're in a wait-and-see pattern to see where this roller coaster takes us. Bitcoin volatility is extremely low and has been over the last few months, which is a telltale sign that volatility is about to make a huge comeback, in whatever direction that is, either up or down. Conditions like this almost always precede a large move, which often catches a lot of traders offside, forcing them to cover longs or shorts, which causes larger moves up or down in the short term. So a short-term sell-off to lower levels below 90K is definitely possible, but any catalyst could also send us violently in the other direction and take us to new all-time highs. The point is, no one really knows which way it's going in the short term. We can only speculate. But one catalyst that could send us much higher is of course the announcement of Bitcoin being added to a US strategic stockpile or part of the new sovereign wealth fund. We've already covered in previous videos why the chances are probably quite a bit higher than many expect that Bitcoin will be added to one or even both of these within the next few months. And as we covered in a video last week, Howard Lutnick is leading the creation of the US sovereign wealth fund. And in my opinion, this is even more likely to include Bitcoin. And that's because Howard Lutnick is a huge Bitcoin bull. He's mentioned on podcasts that he and his company own hundreds of millions of dollars of exposure to Bitcoin, and that he expects it to be worth billions someday. And if a huge Bitcoin bull is building effectively a hedge fund portfolio with assets in an attempt to get the highest returns, the math is pretty straightforward in why one would need to include at least some Bitcoin exposure. I mean, it's the best performing asset almost every year since its inception in 2009, and has one of the best compound annual growth rates of any asset. The math is straightforward, that even a small allocation of Bitcoin can improve the returns of any portfolio. So it would be borderline incompetent for Lutnick not to include at least some allocation to the US sovereign wealth fund. But even though in my opinion and many others there is a significant chance that Bitcoin is part of a US strategic reserve or sovereign wealth fund, does the long-term investment thesis of Bitcoin rely on US government adoption? Alex Thorne of Galaxy Digital Research was on the What Bitcoin Did podcast yesterday talking about exactly this.
But the other thing is, I don't think Bitcoin needs it. Like, Bitcoin has been objectively
100%.
winning for 16 years without governments buying it, without, frankly, institutions buying it. There's no need for it. So I'm fine. I'm fine if it happens because I don't think it's that big of a risk. But I caution. It's one reason why I always come out on the conservative side of this in terms of likelihood or need is because I also don't think the market should be getting so excited about this. Like I said, a historic press conference from David Sachs, but because he didn't announce a giant Bitcoin subsidy to Bitcoin holders, like we're supposed to believe it's bearish all of a sudden. Dude, Bitcoin's 96K, like right now. Like it's crazy. All right. We don't need it. It shouldn't be a sell the news when they announce a potential for a digital asset stockpile, which is fine. And if it happens, it's good. But I worry that the market gets over its skis and then it ends up disappointed for something that may never have been likely in the first place. But also, more importantly, that Bitcoin doesn't need.
Thorne is spot on here. Bitcoin doesn't need the US government to buy it for it to continue to go up in price. I personally think the narrative has gotten away from us a bit here. Let's remember what the investment thesis of Bitcoin is and why it was created. Bitcoin is the hardest, scarcest, and most secure form of money ever created. It was invented to separate money from state control. And as Thorne said, it's been growing organically for 16 years without the need for Trump or any other nation state's involvement, and it still doesn't need them. As long as nation states and central banks keep printing and diluting the money supply and adding to their ballooning debt, and as long as Bitcoin keeps increasing in adoption globally, the price will continue to go up significantly in the long term. And as laid out in my video a couple days ago, there's a real possibility that this cycle is very different from previous ones. Alex Thorne talked about this as well, bringing up Bitcoin's increasing dominance in the crypto space and its further institutionalization.
I do think in a lot of ways the cycle is different, though.
In particular, because of Bitcoin's dominance so early in the cycle.
I think that's one thing that makes a difference. I don't know if there is a cycle separately. I think now with the volatility is way down, like on longer time frames, still plenty volatile, to be clear, Bitcoin. I think the ETFs provide sort of much more resilience on dips and possibly a little bit more resistance on moves higher. Although I think if you look, the best data we have shows that the ETF buyers are mostly hodling. Like it's not a lot of like really fast money.
Yeah, there's been very few like net outflow days.
Yeah, not that many. Even on giant, I think one of the biggest was that like early August when the Japan yen carry trade sort of unwound. There have been big days, but not like over time. It's not, if you look at like a rolling average, it's almost positive the entire time. So I think the institutionalization alters it materially for Bitcoin. I think, like I mentioned this at the beginning, that like the ETH BTC ratio is down 50% since the Ethereum ETFs launched. Bitcoin really has distinguished itself as separate from this rest of this blockchain economy as its own asset, a whole separate thing, right? And there's good reasons to own it. And those good reasons aren't really related. There might also be good reasons for investors to own other things, but they're not related to they're not in competition with the Bitcoin reasons. People fundamentally understand Bitcoin so much better than they do the rest of crypto. And crypto has made so many big promises about decentralizing this or that. And now the dog's got to learn how to drive the car. And what if it can't? And I think it's pretty high likelihood that it won't in the near term. And so you'll continue to see Bitcoin outperform and maybe dominance go even higher.
And this brings me to my final point today. I've been pretty disappointed by the lack of retail interest in Bitcoin so far this cycle. Big, smart money is very bullish Bitcoin right now. And even nation states are starting to dip their toes in. But retail, everyday working people, is still nowhere to be found. We're well into what should be the fourth cycle of Bitcoin adoption, and the mainstream hype surrounding it is very muted at best. A great example of this is that there was no crypto commercials during the Super Bowl this year. All signs are pointing to very low enthusiasm and euphoria from everyday working people, even while institutions are piling in. Now, this could have to do with unit bias, as many see Bitcoin at 100K and just see it as way too expensive and assume they missed the boat. But I think the other part of it has to do with the larger cultural nihilism and a negative outlook for the future.
I attribute even the meme coin frenzy to this. There is a widespread global malaise, particularly among millennials and younger, about the state of the economy, a fear that parents have, that even I have as a parent, my parents had for me, and that I have for my kids, that the future won't be better. Decades of wealth inequality and crony capitalism and dysfunctional governments have really disillusioned younger people about their future. And in that spot, a lot of people are willing to gamble rather than learn about the saving technology that is Bitcoin. Or maybe they even have a little Bitcoin, but they just can't help themselves. There's this social media amplifies. I think there's this widespread view that everybody's making money, right? There was that headline in 2017, everybody's getting hilariously rich and you're not. And it was where they first had that Bitcoin sweater. I have that sweater. And that's not true. Not everyone is getting hilariously rich. Like a lot of people are losing all of their money in that altcoin casino. But I think it emanates from this much darker, almost societal level malaise about the future. And that is sad. And that's one thing I love so much about the Bitcoin community is trying really hard to educate, not just that altcoins are a casino and that a lot of it is effectively penny stock gambling. Sure, that's true. But also the power of freeing yourself from this burden to invest and make a lot of money and instead adopting a much lower time preference, saving in something that can't be debased. I love this part of Bitcoin culture. And I think it's super important because it is clashing against this truly like violently gambling addicted culture that is gambling. People spend so much money on literal like government run lotteries. And like your odds are, it's like you have a better odds of hitting a BitX like solo mining block than you do at like winning a lottery, but yet people still do it.
I completely agree, and I think Thorne paints a very stark image of where everyday working people are in their outlook for the future. And the cruel irony of all of this is that Bitcoin truly offers the people most negatively impacted by the growing wealth inequality as a direct result of a truly broken and rigged monetary system, an escape valve. So my message to the people that think they have a better shot throwing their money on the latest meme coin than making a better life for themselves and their family by saving for the long term in Bitcoin is that you're not too late. Bitcoin is not too expensive. It's going significantly higher than here. It's not even 15% of gold's market cap, and it's profoundly better than gold in so many ways. Bitcoin is the solution to so many of the problems that we have as a result of a truly broken system. So I implore you to do the work and learn more about it. And if you've already done the work, continue to evangelize to those that you love with patience. Remember that you were in their shoes at one point too. Fight the urge to gamble away your savings and save in Bitcoin for the long term so you can focus on the things that really matter. And you can do all of those things through services like Swan. Visit swan.com or download the app by searching Swan Bitcoin in the App Store. Swan has the fastest and easiest onboarding experience in the industry. You go from sign up to buying real Bitcoin in minutes. And are you ready to own Bitcoin in your retirement account? And I'm talking real Bitcoin, not proxies like an ETF. Swan IRA makes it simple and secure. No hidden fees with unmatched support and easy onboarding. Swan IRA helps you build your legacy your way. Learn more at swan.com/IRA. And remember, you can make a 2024 IRA contribution until April 15th. Finally, a quick shout out to Mara, the largest publicly traded Bitcoin miner, for supporting this show and for helping make Bitcoin the world's most decentralized and secure monetary network. So in closing, Bitcoin doesn't need a strategic Bitcoin reserve in order to go way higher from here. It's not too expensive and you are not too late. You can still change the future for you and your family without risky gambling and time-consuming investing. But I'd love to hear what you think in the comments below. Like this video if you made it this far, share it with friends and family that you think would benefit, and subscribe to the Swan Bitcoin channel for more high-signal Bitcoin content. And maybe hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next video. Thanks for watching, and remember, TikTok next block.